Hello, you guys. Now I'm gonna try to explain to you how you solve the first part of the written exam in virksomhedsøkonomi level B. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through task 1.1 to 1.3 and 4. A bit of 4 we can talk about. But let me start from here, because these first 3 assignments are always almost 100% the same as you'll see at the exam, and they combine, they give a lot of points, so they are very important for you to be able to reach as high an amount of point as possible, of course. But let's take this. Yes, 1.1, you're told to say, explain the internal and external factors that have influenced the economic development, in this case for a company called Active Sportswear, in recent years. What I would do, and what can be done, you can do it differently, but I would focus first on internal factors. Extraordinary cost associated with transferring from a multi-brand company into a dedicated business unit have negatively impacted earnings. These things, of course, makes more sense when you have read the articles, but the way to write it is, okay, extraordinary cost, what is that? However, this transformation is expected to reduce future costs. So extraordinary costs, but it's something that will later on resolve in future lower cost. Then there's credit facilities. The company has maintained credit facilities with the bank according to the management report. This ensures sufficient capital for a continued operation. Again, this is internal factors, and it makes more sense when you have read the articles. But just to explain, then there's growth in the key markets. The company has experienced growth in its primary export markets, and with major key customers positively influence revenue and likely the overall financial result. This means, and this is technically written, it's written in terms of how you write about these things, but the main thing is that you focus on the company, what they have experienced, and of course also how these things have involved in financial results. Next is external factors. And we have here exchange rate fluctuations. The exchange rate development of the US dollar, Swedish krona, and Norwegian krona have negatively impacted the results. The company largest brand, New Balance, is purchased in US dollars and sold among others currencies, Swedish, Norwegian krona. With the dollar appreciating, the Scandinavian currencies depreciating, result has been affected. This is of course the case because the Swedish krona has fallen, and this has of course affected it. Then growth in active wear and the segments have become stable in the fashion world, taking market shares from traditional appearance. Growth in these segments has slightly positively impacted active sports revenue. This is kind of a marketing assignment, but it's you focus on these specific things you want to show in your assignment. I'm just going to move myself a bit. Changes in New Balance operations. In 2018, New Balance took over all sale and distribution activities in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Since New Balance accounted for the majority of the company's revenue, this has led to a significant reduction in actively moving towards the forward. As a result, the company has adapted to the reduced activity, including downsizing the balance sheet. Guys, think about this. It's like a nightmare in this case. It's like a nightmare. You see, the number one brand that you've sold, you suddenly don't have it anymore. Guys, this is external. This is not something you as a company can control, but it's just really unfortunate for the company. The next part. Assets Which internal and external factors may explain the development in the index figures for earning and capital adjustment from 14 to 16? Okay, in this case we have different for earning capacity figures, and remember to read them from right to left, no, from right to left. Therefore, we have here revenue, etc. All of these. What can we use it for then? Well, internal factors. Revenue growth, 8%. Cost of goods sold, 18% increase. Personal cost, 10% increase. Reduced depreciation, 11% decrease. Administrative efficiency, reduction. Guys, these things needs to be considered, and they need afterwards to be concluded on. Or you can't conclude on it, you can also just explain it for the next part, but basically what this is telling us is that the company, as you see, the company has some issues in terms of, for example, the strong US dollar. They also have some issues in terms of personal costs. They also have their reduced depreciation, the decline in depreciation and the corresponding 8% reduction in fixed assets suggest scaling back of investments to adapt to a lower activity level following the loss of distribution rights of New Balance. Guys, this is kind of, we have a situation where we used to have New Balance, then we are trying to take back the activity so it's not as strong as it was before. Then we have the 2% reduction in other external expenses, indicates that the administrative downsizing during the transformation process potentially part of the cost optimization effort. So we can see, okay, 2% reduction, that is a positive thing. Then we have external factors, the exchange rate, market trends in activewear, loss of New Balance distribution rights, of course also affects this, of course also is something that you should take into consideration in terms of why does it develop the way it is. Then next, explain how the development in the index figures have influenced the profit margin and asset turnover ratio from 14 to 16. In this case, earning ability has fallen as the profit margin fell from 4 to 6. So here you have the difference. The earning occurred solely between 15 and 16. So you go in and see, okay, when did it really happen? When was it that we had this development? The decline in the profit margin is due to an 18% increase in cost of goods sold and a 10% increase in personal cost. So what you actually do is you look into the figures, see, okay, how is the development? These costs grew more than the revenue, which only increased by 8%. Other external costs as well as depreciation and amortization decreased, positively impacting, because depreciation falling, other external costs falling, positively influenced the company. So here you have the different here. The capital adjustment ability have improved as asset turnover increased from 1.56 times to 1.61 times in 16. An increase of 0.5 times, equivalent to approximately 3%. The increase in asset turnover is partly due to a reduction in both the company fixed assets and inventories. So if you see here how the asset turnover has developed from here to here to here, slight increase, it was calculated to 3%. Revenue, assets, etc. Revenue increased, assets fall, the current assets also fall, then that has definitely influenced it. The next one, explain why the return on assets and return on equity has declined from 14 to 16. And of course, return on assets is the same as return on investment. So that's of course what is meant by this translation, and which I also state later on. Return on investment, profit ratio, and asset turnover ratio. The return on investment declined from 7.2% in 14 to minus 0.3 times. A drop of 7.5 percentage points in 16, and the ROI is considered unacceptable because of the decline, and it has a negative value. The primary cause of this decline is a sharp fall in profit margin ratio, because we saw before that the asset turnover actually increased a bit. And if you remember the DuPont pyramid, you see profit ratio multiplied with asset turnover gives the return on investment. Although asset turnover increased slightly during this period, the improvement was not enough to compensate for the sustainable drop of profitability, because, and again, the story is active sportswear is folded and has lost distribution right for New Balance. Return on equity declined 28.9% to minus 75.8% in 16, a decrease of 104.7 percentage points. The negative return on equity is completely unacceptable. And the decline, of course, is due to a combination of drop in return on investment and an increase in financial leverage studying. Although the interest rate on the debt decreased during the period, it was not enough to offset the decline in return on investment and rise in leverage. Guys, a good idea on how to look at this is, and what I would suggest you do, is you look at, oh my God. So you look at the figures here, and you open the Excel file, and it will show you the details of, okay, and if you double click on it, you see, okay, why did it develop the way it did? Anyway, this is what you're supposed to do. I wish you all the best. Remember, it's practice. Terminsprøve is really early this year. You didn't have a lot of time to practice. It's more or less practice, okay? But make sure to use all 4 hours. That's the one thing I will look at, of course. Good luck.